Well done, Harry, said Hagrid, ecstatic. Right, you can touch him. Pat him on his beak. Go on. Feeling that a better reward would have been to back away, Harry moved slowly towards the hippogriff and reached out toward it. He patted the beak several times, and the hippogriff closed its eyes lazily, as though enjoying it. The class broke into applause, all except Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, who were looking deeply disappointed. Right then, Harry, said Harry. I reckon I might let you ride him. This was more than Harry had bargained for. He was used to a broomstick, but he wasn't sure a hippogriff would be quite the same. You climb up there just behind the wing joint, said Hagrid, and mind you don't pull out any of his feathers. He won't like that. Harry put his foot on the top of Buckbeak's wing and hoisted himself onto its back. Buckbeak stood up. Harry wasn't sure where to hold on. Everything in front of him was covered with feathers. Go on then, roared Hagrid, slapping the hippogriff's hindquarters. Without warning, 12-foot wings flapped open on either side of Harry. He just had time to seize the hippogriff around the neck before he was soaring upwards. It was nothing like a broomstick, and Harry knew which one he preferred. The hippogriff's wings beat uncomfortably on either side of him, catching him under his legs and making him feel he was about to be thrown off. The glossy feathers slipped under his fingers, and he didn't dare get a stronger grip. Instead of the smooth action of the Nimbus 2000, he now felt himself rocking backwards and forwards as the hind quarters of the hippogriff rose and fell with each wing. Buckbeak flew him once around the paddock and then headed back to the ground. This was the bit Harry had been dreading. He leaned back as the smooth neck lowered, feeling he was going to slip off over the beak, then felt a heavy thud as the 4 ill-assorted feet hit the ground. He just managed to hold on and push himself right again. Good work, Harry, roared Hagrid, as everyone except Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle cheered. Okay, who else wants to go? Emboldened by Harry's success, the rest of the class climbed cautiously into the paddock. Hagrid untied the hippogriffs one by one, and soon people were bowing nervously all over the paddock. Neville ran completely backwards from his, which didn't seem to want to bend his knees. Ron and Hermione practiced on the chestnut while Harry watched. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle had taken over Buckbeak. He had bowed to Malfoy, who was now patting his beak, looking disdainful. This was very easy, Malfoy drawled, loud enough for Harry to hear him. I knew it must have been, if Potter could do it. I bet you're not dangerous at all, are you? He said to the hippogriff. Are you, you great, ugly brute? It happened in a flash of steely talons. Malfoy let out a high-pitched scream, and the next moment Hagrid was wrestling Buckbeak back into his collar as he strained to get at Malfoy, who was laid curled up in the grass, blood blossoming all over his robes. I'm dying, Malfoy yelled as the class panicked. I'm dying! Look at me! He's killed me! You're not dying, said Hagrid, who had gone very white. Someone help me! Gotta get him out of here! Hermione ran to hold open the gate as Hagrid lifted Malfoy easily. As they passed, Harry saw that there was a long, deep gash on Malfoy's arm. Blood splattered the grass, and Hagrid ran with him, up the slope towards the castle. Very shaken, the Care of Magical Creatures class followed at a walk. The Slytherins were all shouting about Hagrid. They should fire him right away, said Pansy Parkinson, who was in tears. It was Malfoy's fault, snapped Dean Thomas. Crabbe and Goyle flexed their muscles threateningly. They all climbed the stone steps into the deserted entrance hall. I'm going to see if he's okay, said Pansy. And they all watched her run up the marble staircase. The Slytherins, still muttering about Hagrid, headed away in the direction of their dungeon common room. Harry, Ron, and Hermione proceeded upstairs to the Gryffindor Tower. You think he'll be all right? Said Hermione nervously. Of course he will. Madame Pomfrey can mend cuts in about a second, said Harry, who had far worse injuries mended magically by the nurse. It was a really bad thing to happen on Hagrid's first class, though, wasn't it? Said Ron, looking worried. Trust Malfoy to mess things up for him. They were among the first to reach the great hall at dinner time, hoping to see Hagrid, but he wasn't there. They wouldn't fire him, would they? Said Hermione anxiously, not touching her steak and kidney pudding. They'd better not, said Ron, who wasn't eating either. Harry was watching the Slytherin table. A large group, including Crabbe and Goyle, was huddled together, deep in conversation. Harry was sure they were cooking up their own version of how Malfoy had been injured. Well, you can't say it wasn't an interesting first day back, said Ron gloomily. They went up to the crowded Gryffindor common room after dinner and tried to do their homework Professor McGonagall had given them. But all three of them kept breaking off and glancing out of the tower window. There's a light on in Hagrid's window, Harry said suddenly. Ron looked at his watch. If we hurry, we can get down and see him. It's still quite early. I don't know, Hermione said slowly, and Harry saw her glance at him. I'm allowed to walk across the grounds, he said pointedly. Sirius Black hasn't gotten past the Dementors yet, has he? So they put on their things, and they put their things away and headed out of the portrait hole, glad to meet nobody on their way to the front doors, as they weren't entirely sure they were supposed to be out. The grass was still wet and looked almost black in the twilight. When they reached Hagrid's hut, they knocked, and a voice growled, "Come in!" Hagrid was sitting in his shirt sleeves at his scrubbed wooden table. His boarhound Fang had his head in Hagrid's lap. One look told them that Hagrid had been drinking a lot. There was a pewter tankard almost as big as a bucket in front of him, and he seemed to be having difficulty getting them into focus. "'Spect it's a record," he said thickly, when he recognized them. "Don't reckon there'd ever been a teacher who lasted only one day before." "You haven't been fired, Hagrid?" gasped Hermione. "Not yet," said Hagrid miserably, taking a huge gulp of whatever was in the tankard. "But it's only a matter of time, isn't it, after Malfoy?" "How is he?" said Ron, as they all sat down. "It wasn't serious, was it?" "Madame Pomfrey fixed him up as best he could," said Hagrid dully. "But he's still in agony, covered in bandages, moaning." "He's faking it," said Harry at once. "Madame Pomfrey can mend anything. She regrew half my bones last year. Trust Malfoy to milk it for all it's worth." "School governors have been told, course," said Hagrid miserably. "They reckon I started too big. Should have left hippogriffs for later. Gone with flubberworms or something. Just thought it'd be a good first lesson. It's all my fault." "It's all Malfoy's fault, Hagrid," said Hermione earnestly. "We're witnesses," said Harry. "You said hippogriffs attack if you insult them. It's Malfoy's problem that he wasn't listening. We'll tell Dumbledore what really happened." "Yeah, don't worry, Hagrid. We'll back you up," said Ron. Tears leaked out of the crinkled corners of Hagrid's beetle-black eyes. He grabbed both Harry and Ron and pulled them into a bone-breaking hug. "I think you've had enough to drink, Hagrid," said Hermione firmly. She took the tankard from the table and went outside to empty it. Maybe she's right," said Hagrid, letting go of Harry and Ron, who both staggered away, rubbing their ribs. Hagrid heaved himself out of the chair and followed Hermione out unsteadily outside. They heard a loud splash. "What's he done?" said Harry nervously as Hermione came back with an empty tankard. "Stuck his head in the water barrel," said Hermione, putting the tankard away. Hagrid came back, his long hair and beard sopping wet, wiping the water out of his eyes. "That's better," he said, shaking his head like a dog and drenching them all. "Listen, it was good of you to come and see me, but I really..." Hagrid stopped dead, staring at Harry, as though he'd only just realized he was there. "What do you think you're doing, eh?" he roared, so suddenly that they jumped a foot in the air. "You're not supposed to be wandering around after dark, Harry, and you two letting them." Hagrid strode over to Harry, grabbed his arm, and pulled him to the door. "Come on," Hagrid said angrily. "I'm taking you back up to this school, and don't let me catch you walking down here to see me after dark again. I'm not worth that." That's the end of chapter 6.